mentioned earlier, we recorded this interview with Cornel West shortly before his campaign announced that Peter Daou would be his new campaign manager, and that has led to a real debate on the left and many concerns being raised by supporters of the campaign. For those who don't know, Peter Daou is a former Democratic Party strategist who, among other things, played a key public role in the 2016 Hillary Clinton campaign, during which he repeatedly made political attacks on Bernie Sanders. Peter Daou has since publicly broken with the Democratic Party and supported Bernie Sanders in 2020. It's totally understandable that activists and working people who've been repeatedly sold out have raised concerns about this decision by the West campaign. For one, not only is Daou's break with the Democratic establishment relatively recent, just in the last few months, he was the campaign manager of yet another Democratic Party campaign, Marianne Williamson's. I do think this is a mistake by the Cornel West campaign, in particular because this decision has acted to divide West's current base of supporters. The concerns that have been raised have a real basis in reality. It's not clear what Daou's politics are at this point or where he is headed, and it's important to ask the question, as many have, why put someone who was until only a short while ago with the Democratic Party at the very helm of an independent left campaign, even if their break from the Democrats is genuinely intentioned? However, in our approach to these questions, we also cannot afford to lose sight of the fact that the Cornel West campaign is offering a sorely needed left alternative to the utterly bankrupt candidacies of Biden and Trump and to the two parties of big business. In the absence of the West campaign, working people have no real options in this election, and this will lead to many of them not voting at all or voting for Trump's dangerous right-wing populism. I don't think Bernie Sanders made all the right personnel decisions either, but my main concern with Bernie Sanders was not his staffing decisions, but his capitulation to the Democratic Party in endorsing Biden, and since then, how he has provided cover to Biden and the Democrats' ongoing betrayals of working people. Right now, we need to see how things develop with the Cornel West campaign, including with Peter Daou. In my view, the main questions facing the campaign, as we raised in this interview, is whether Cornel West will consistently and clearly campaign on his working class demands, whether he will run all the way to November 2024 rather than endorse Biden, and whether he will give his campaign a mass grassroots character, including by organizing mass rallies. And I was not entirely happy with Dr. West's response to us on the question of organizing rallies. He first said that they need to, quote unquote, pace themselves. I think there is an urgency on this question. By this time in the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2015, as I said, more than 100,000 people had attended his mass rallies, and many more had heard about the program of demands Bernie was running on. The clock is ticking here, and we urgently need mass grassroots participation. The best way for us to keep West's campaign accountable to working people is for us to give it a grassroots character, to get involved, and to speak out publicly against mistakes like this one.
It's great to see Kshama putting content out there, Workers Strike Back, have their own YouTube page to go along with their activism. Something that we advocated for, and that's why we started RBN, because we saw for a very long time, not only was left media weak, like the lead left media voices were people like Kyle Kulinski and TYT before. Not only that, but there was a disconnect between, you got people who either only engage in activism without educating the masses, or you have people who be on YouTube without doing activism. So it's great to see not only us engage in RBN chapters and be on YouTube. It's good to see Workers Strike Back not only doing the great work that they're doing. I was with them earlier this year, but also releasing great content, holding the left accountable. Like, people need to understand what we mean when we say horizontal movement. You know what I mean? Not top down, not we making a decision, you guys shut the fuck up and like it. And you guys shut the fuck up and accept it. No, that is not the movement I'm looking for. It's never been the movement that we've been looking for at RBN. And if we really want the Dr. West campaign to succeed, we gotta sharpen. We have iron sharpen iron. We gotta hold them accountable. Right. That is not what you see out of the two-party duopoly in any meaningful way. We gotta run shit completely different. CJ, I know you want to chime in, so I'll pass to you. I got a lot to say. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, what you're saying, Nick, how we're doing it is such a shock to American political discord, even on the left. because I have my critique of the Cornell picking burnt Peter Daou, but if people listen to my critique in the same video, I said I'm for the movement. This just means I'm not voting for him in November. This doesn't change the move. I said that in the video, and people act like I didn't say that. They act like I just said dump Cornell, and nobody said that. We have Cornel West running. I have the advantage of living, or the benefit, I should say, of living in California. So I have an even better candidate that's to the left of Cornel West. So why would you even have a problem that I'm picking somebody whose leading campaign slogan is "We must end capitalism"? You get what I'm saying? So it's the shock of the critique. Understand. People act like when they had these revolutions, do you think people were just nice, or they was arguing, knocked down, dragged out fights, sometimes leading to physical fights, and then they handshake at the end? And this is what it takes for movements to actually stay rooted in the ground roots, is these sort of debates. And I like that somebody in the comments of this video that I played, I'm gonna go back to it, and we're gonna bring you in 1 second, Niko, but I'm gonna bring this back up before we go back to this video, because somebody in the comments says, finally, I think it was Lucy, Blue Moon Lucy.
Yeah,
she was
my friend.
Finally somebody prominent says it, because I took a lot of heat. I took a lot of heat for the shit that I took a lot of heat for my stance. And the thing is, RBN is known for that. I take that with pride. We are known for going out and saying what nobody's saying months in advance, and then they catch up to us. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here. I'm just simply saying we're used to taking the heat at this moment. But to see her come out and say it just, to me, it crosses the T, it dots the I of the point that is made, that we must move on with the movement, as she said. But we must ask the question, what the fuck is this decision? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, that's the question. That doesn't eliminate the question.
The left need to take a failure is not an option approach. Like, no more. Like, I was guilty of this. Like, I'm learning from my mistakes, guys. I was on the Bernie campaign. My friend Niko, people warned us about Bernie. Niko was one of them. Like, I would see some red flags, and I'm like, all right, it's cool. Come on, let's just stay positive. Let's keep it moving. I don't like what Bernie said about Joe, my friend. I was on the Bernie campaign saying so many mistakes, but I didn't say anything because I wanted to be nice. You know what I mean? How did that end, fam? How did that work out?
We can bring in Niko, so he can be a part of this segment right here. Let's bring him in.
Yeah, what's popping, Niko?
My apologies. I was on color people time. My lighting was acting crazy. It's actually low key still acting crazy, but it's all good. But yeah, man, Kshama, gospel. Like, it's very rare that she has a take that I disagree with. So and I'm glad, like y'all said, like that she said something, because I also know that Dr. West respects her, right?
Right.
We're just, talking heads behind the microphone. Although Dr. West may have a level of respect for us, the reality is there is limits, and the truth is, obviously, Kshama has more experience, not only as an independent candidate, but somebody who won. Right. So it's different. Right. It's different for her. Right. And obviously my age and experience might play a factor in that. But yeah, like, so, okay, maybe you don't want to listen to us. Maybe you don't want to listen to Jay. Maybe you don't want to listen to Nick. Maybe Jimmy said it too rough. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe Bree was being too nice. But when Kshama Sawant is saying the same thing that we're all saying, but just in a different, maybe different tonality, but with different experiences and credentials and acumen behind her words, like, you better listen. Because there are people who will stop supporting Dr. West if Kshama Sawant is like, like, right? Like, that's the one. Maybe we can't sway anybody, but her, like, she's damn near above reproach. I can't think of a single criticism that I've ever had of Kshama Sawant before.
Maybe not going harder. I can't even think of it. It's nothing to her, right? Yeah, there's no other thing I can even say.
She goes pretty hard.
And she goes hard at that.
Yeah, one thing I want to say to CJ's point earlier, and I said this when we first covered the Dr. Cornel West campaign, the very first segment, I said I'm not in here to do what I used to do, where I pledge support for candidates a year before the election. I may or may not vote for Dr. Cornel West. I don't have PSL on the ballot, so If I vote, it's going to be for Dr. Cornel West. But I'm done. Like, what benefit do we get? And I said this before Dr. Cornel West announced his campaign, and I see no reason to change my mind on this. There's no reason to pledge support as a working class person. There are people who got jobs on campaigns. Like, there are people who hired by the RFK Jr. campaign who try and convince us to join the campaign. People hired on Dr. Cornel West campaign. But if you're an ordinary working class person trying to increase your negotiation power, there is no reason to pledge support. For a reason, like we were saying, when you see even people that I like and I admire, like Dr. Cornel West, make mistakes, you're not gonna have any sway. They're like, oh, this motherfucker gonna cape for me. They're gonna apologize for me. They tell me people vote for me. What my vision of a movement is the people, even the people who support the movement, the people on the bottom, the people building the movement on the horizontal level, we relentlessly holding people on the top accountable. You guys do that to me as well. I try my best to improve my presentation. I feel like I improved a lot as a analyst over the last year. I still got a lot of improvements.
Absolutely.
Because I hear from you guys roast my ass when I fuck up. People hold me accountable when I have bad takes. So I try to improve. So that's even the mindset I have. So I think as a leader, you should be able to listen to the people who have your best interest at heart.
Right.
And that's what we have. But I know you want to chime in, Niko. Go ahead, and Niko.
No, I just wanted to say, so once again, and I like having this conversation specifically because I remember a time where I was attacked. And at this point, when I started getting attacked, it wasn't because I had endorsed Tulsi. It was actually because I refused to endorse Bernie. And people forget that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, like I had eventually endorsed Tulsi, but that was after Bernie continued to for example, whenever he was called out, hey man, shouldn't you like speak up for Tulsi after she got cheated after debate stage like she did for you? And he basically kept saying no, like, oh, the Democrats got to figure out how to wheedle down the debate stage somehow. Like he kept pussyfooting on it, and then like he won't move in right. And I'm like, nah, like especially for me, like foreign policy is such a big deal and election integrity is such a big deal. And I'm like, well, I made my decision. But the attack started before that, and it was only because I wouldn't endorse people's favorite guy, right? And in situations like that, truth be told, it's because people are in some way, usually financially, invested in that individual, right? There are people who are hoping to make money from talking about Cornel West, to gain followers and a following from talking about Cornel West, to maybe be a part of the campaign and get their clout up by talking about
Cornel West. If we were grifters, Niko, wouldn't we do that? If we were the true grifters, right? Wouldn't we uncritically follow the Dr. West campaign like Tim Black and others are doing?
And this was my point, right? So this is my point. What people, and I talk about this on my show, and I've said it before, but I'll say it here again. People know I had influence in Tulsi Gabbard's campaign. Not like the kind of influence like y'all be thinking about when you think about the Bernie campaign where they really didn't have influence. It just looked from the outside like they had influence. But anybody who knows how that campaign went, it was like two people who really had some type of influence. So everybody else, unfortunately, including like Cornel West, they were just window dressing there to prop up Bernie. You know why I got influence in Tulsi's campaign? Because I did an entire like 45-minute video criticizing her stance on on Syria. Like going piece by piece, challenge respectfully, like you all do with Dr. West, like I've done with Dr. West, respectfully. And even though her and I had, and that's matter of fact, her and I had been in contact before that. So like we had already been, we were acquaintances more so than friends at that point. But like I didn't let that stop me from doing my job. And she was very clear that that was what made her respect me more and actually gave me genuine influence. Because now I'm not a yes man. I'm actually somebody who's trying to contribute in a meaningful way because I want to see the best for her in the campaign. So basically what I'm saying is like,
that's why Peter Daou was on
you don't give up your power by disagreeing and being a yes man.
Yeah. All right, fellas. So what I do want to do is go back through this video and I'm going to play a full minute. I know all three of us are kind of alpha in the way that we speak, so I'm gonna try to get through this. So let's play the full minute. I'll let play. Yeah, then we'll critique, and then I'll do it like that in three sections. So let's go. Oops.
Cornel West shortly before his campaign announced that Peter Daou would be his new campaign manager, and that has led to a real debate on the left and many concerns being raised by supporters of the campaign. For those who don't know, Peter Daou is a former Democratic Party strategist who, among other things, played a key public role in the 2016 Hillary Clinton campaign, during which he repeatedly made
I'm going to pause here so I can read the tweets just for those that might be listening. So Kshama in her video is providing evidence of Peter Daou, what she's saying in the video. And the tweet says, I'll read the original tweet and then the quote tweet. The original one says, gut check, there's no split in the Democratic Party. There's Bernie Sanders and his rage-filled, self-righteous, diehard attacking Democrats. He quote tweets that saying, warning to Democratic leaders, until you confront the toxic, destructive influence on the party that is Bernie Sanders, you will keep losing. That's one of the tweets she shows. So I'll get back to the video now.
Made political attacks on Bernie Sanders.
One more. I'll be clear. Bernie Sanders has absolutely no business in determining the course of the Democratic Party after the harm he did to us.
Peter Daou has since publicly broken with the Democratic Party and supported Bernie Sanders in 2020. It's totally understandable that activists and working people who've been repeatedly sold out have raised concerns about this decision by the West campaign. For one, not only is Daou's break with the Democratic establishment relatively recent, just in the last few months, he was the campaign manager of yet another Democratic Party campaign, Marianne Williamson's.
So for me, Niko and Nick, this is one of the key points that she makes that I think, Nick, you were one of the first people that I heard on stream make this point explicitly, not just generically. Like what is the explanation for that? I'm just rhetorically saying, I'm not saying for us as a discussion question, but this point that she makes here is critical, because how do you explain that? You can't say then he's had this wake up call of the Democratic Party when just a few months ago he was with them. Now, if he never did that, he would have a lot better stance on that particular argument, but he chose to go with Marianne Williamson. Either third parties was the answer. So this is what Peter Daou's saying, that in 3 months, he saw something in 3 months that make him go, no more Democratic Party. Now I'm going full stop.
So his explanation
I don't believe it. Go ahead.
Did you hear his explanation on Savvy Show? Basically, he said that it was like he had always hoped for Marianne Williamson to make a clean break, and he had encouraged her and actually RFK Jr. to gather up resources and by using the foundation of the Democratic Party, and then take him and do a dirty break with them and go third party. He said that was always his intention, but it's very difficult to believe, because for Marianne Williamson, for example, it would have made more sense to start off third party than to go into the Dems, where she wasn't that popular to begin with. So like once, and he said though that she made it clear that she was never going to separate. And then he said that because of that and the issues with whatever he had going on in his life, that was when he decided it was the time to separate from the campaign. So my thing is like, that's just there's a lot of red flags in that whole scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I know we have levels of sort of like degrees of critique of Peter. I'm probably on the high end, you're probably in the middle, and Nick is on he doesn't have the same animosity towards him, so he's not as rough. But
my critique is a failure is not an option policy, like I mentioned earlier. With the argument that Kshama was making, does Peter Daou alienate supporters? Yes or no? The answer is yes, whether you like it or not. If the answer is yes, that means he shouldn't be campaign manager. Period.
I can even say like it's not yes or no. It's, does he alienate enough where it's a problem? Where now he has become the news, right? Because like Jeff Weaver alienated some Bernie supporters. People don't know that because it wasn't a big enough problem for it to make the news, right?
Yeah.
But like you probably didn't know that because you weren't part of the 2016 campaign, and most people who knew that were intricately involved. But this isn't.
I didn't know that much about Jeff Weaver at that time. Yeah, I didn't know that much.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying. But when this man becomes the news to the point where he has to go on a whole goddamn tour. To try to
yeah, he does.
It's a distraction. It's an unnecessary distraction. I'm all about failure. It's not an option. Winning at all costs. And another question. Once again, this is brutal. They don't like this incivility politics, but I don't know why people believe that Peter Dow can give us a W, considering his track record of having L's. Like he was on Hillary Clinton campaign,
on Democratic Party campaigns where he was shooing to win. Yeah,
like, are we picking a winner or someone who got a track record of losing? It seems like we picking someone who got a track record of losing. So one thing that's mean to say, I guess, it's not civil.
Hey, I appreciate that. Man.
All
I lost in 2016. Okay, when I was at Bernie, I lost.
Because now that's separate. Now this is separate from my personal belief. Now the reason why I don't have the personal animosity to Peter Dow a lot of people have because I joined Twitter post Revelation. I didn't start posting on Twitter until like late 2019. That's around time I met you, Niko. It was I missed that entire phase of Peter Dow, so I never saw it. So there's a bias. I mean, never seen Peter at his worst. And there also the belief I have as a founder attended man and believer in abolition and rehabilitation. I believe that people can change and grow. But I also have that pin with the belief that just because someone going through this rehabilitation process, they shouldn't be in charge of a movement that is so important. So the Dr. Cornel West candidacy, most people will admit, is a unique, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a third party. Well, I say once-in-a-generational, I say that. Opportunity for third party. So this one opportunity we have, you guys rolling dice on Peter Dow?
You know what?
So if Peter Dow having this redemption arc, yeah, he can work for a Congress campaign office. You risking it all for him? What his track record of giving wins? None? Okay, so I guess we're doing it as a job.
Yeah, and you know what, bro? You know how much we can look the other way at that motherfucker had a track record of just W's on W. You know, it's like, you know what? Maybe that motherfucker know what he's doing. It's worth the risk. You know, like maybe if he really is reformed and enough people can vouch for him and he has a track record of W, but like his sole purpose, remember, at one point, his sole purpose was to do what? Smear Bernie Sanders and his supporters, and then, of course, smear Jill Stein and her supporters. And yet, in that period, they had become more popular and broken more fundraising records to the point where people literally, like, there were jobs that were created because you were talking about Bernie Sanders. So, like, you weren't even good at that. Like if I'm being honest, right?
Niko,
you weren't even good at that.
And Niko, the reason why I say that, because the excuse come from the Dr. Cornel West camp, is that, there's not a lot of experienced campaign managers. CJ, you heard this. There's not a lot of experienced campaign managers, so we have no choice but to hire Peter Dow. Sir, ma'am, what's the evidence that Peter Dow is experienced winning campaign manager? Is that mean to say? Yes, it is. But I'm not here for civility politics. I'm here with the failure is not an option mentality. I like Peter. We follow each other on Twitter. We like each other tweets quite a few times.
When we follow each other, we follow each other too.
But this is real. Like politics, this is not a fucking movie podcast. You know what I mean? We're not talking about building a fucking middle-aged soccer team. You know what I mean? This is real life shit.
When it flips to that, when it comes to strategy, bro, like I'm like Nick, probably Jay the same. Like, bro, I'm cut. Exactly. First of all, I don't fucking like lose. I do not like losing at all. I don't like losing. And when it comes to when people know me, it was, I don't know, maybe in the past, why I've caught so much flack, because they're used to seeing, okay, journalists. But when I go into, like, I've worked in politics, bro. When I go into strategy mode, I don't have time to mince words and to coddle your feelings. And like, now I'll be like, look, respectfully, this is wrong. This is right. This is why. This is the history proving that this will work and this won't work. Yes. You can accept that, or take the L. But when you take it, don't be running around talking about, I don't understand how this happened. Like, that's how and then I also tell people who are watching on the outside, like, now I told you, like, for example, election integrity on both sides, Trump and Bernie. I was like, y'all, we still have not resolved this election integrity issue, because people would ask me, and I like, oh, how much of a chance do you think Tulsi had? I said, oh, probably the exact same amount of chances as Bernie. They're like, what? How? I said, did we resolve any of those issues within the Democratic Party before? Like that happened before Nick had joined? And they're like, well, no, but this time we have more support. I said, see, that's you're confusing more support with functionality. Like, does the Democratic Party function any differently than it did in 2016? The answer is no. Has Bernie substantively addressed that, or even made a big deal about it so that Democrats feel pressure to address that? No.
Exactly.
So the chances are the same. I don't care how much money he's raised. And they were looking at me like I'm crazy. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah, and one more thing I say, I'll pass to you, and I'll pass right to you, CJ. Like Niko said, I don't like losing. Guys, the Bernie campaign changed me. Shit fucking, I told you guys, I snapped at the Super Tuesday. I seen all those mistakes that Niko laid out. Like I was on their campaign, I was working, I seen all these mistakes you guys making, but I was like, okay, let's push forward. I don't want to be uncivil. I don't want to cause a ruckus. You know what I mean? I think these people, they know what they're doing. Then I followed the direction and we lost. I'm like, never again. I trusted you motherfuckers. I thought you guys knew what you guys was doing, and you lost. So I'm not doing this thing where I just believe you're right for no reason. No, you got to explain to me step by step why is Peter Daou hire is a good decision. Well, I think we don't got his track record. What track record, ma'am or sir? Anyway,
or why certain advice is being ignored, because that happened.
Yeah.
You know, that happened a lot.
I do think this is a mistake by the Cornel West campaign, in particular because this.
Let me rewind that part back right here.
Party campaign, Marianne Williamson's. I do think this is a mistake by the Cornel West campaign, in particular because this decision has acted to divide West's current base of supporters. The concerns that have been raised have a real basis in reality. It's not clear what Daou's politics are at this point or where he is headed, and it's important to ask the question, as many have, why put someone who was until only a short while ago with the Democratic Party at the very helm of an independent left campaign, even if their break from the Democrats is genuinely intentioned? However, in our approach to these questions, we also cannot afford to lose sight of the fact that the Cornel West campaign is offering a sorely needed left alternative to the utterly bankrupt candidacies of Biden and Trump and to the two parties of big business. In the absence of the West campaign, working people have no real options in this election, and this will lead to many of them not voting at all or voting for Trump's dangerous right-wing populism. I don't think Bernie Sanders made all the right personnel decisions either, but my main concern with Bernie Sanders was not his staffing decisions, but his capitulation to the Democratic Party in endorsing Biden, and since then, how he has provided cover to Biden and the Democrats' ongoing betrayals of working people. Right now, we need to see how things develop with the Cornel West campaign, including with Peter Daou. In my view, the main questions facing the campaign, as we raised in this interview, is whether Cornel West will consistently and.
So before she gets to this last part, because I do want to discuss that as a separate question, because she gets into a different strategy question, but what she says here, she says it perfectly. She says it in a way that everybody kind of likes. Or the vast majority of people like Kshama Sawant. So
who don't like her?
To me, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's some haters, there's some Democratic, there's some cowbell leftists that are like that. The Democrat blue and blue, that type of person. Go ahead.
I will say this because they're not allowed to say. I talk to many people at work at Strike Back. I know the people they reached out to. I know the responses they get. They're too civil to ever say it, but all these boutique leftists that claim they support labor rights, they rejected Kshama. I let her say name, but she said it before. I'm not gonna get in trouble, but she reached out to all the big names. So I was at work at Strike Back, guys. I gave a speech at the opening event, right? You guys think I was the only one they reached out to? You think I was the biggest name they could get? No, they reached out to a ton of people. And if you guys got questions, Kshama will probably tell you. I'll let her speak from there. So to answer your question, Niko, who don't like Kshama? A lot of these people who are part of the Bernie industrial complex can't stand her. But they can't publicly say that. They can't publicly say it, though. She blacklisted on multiple shows. One, I think she called this out, so I hope Kshama don't get mad at me. But she was booked to be on Nina's show. And they fucking...
TYT probably killed that. Because they were the ones
they scrapped it last second. She's like, what the fuck? Anyway, there are many shows like that too. I'll pass back to you.
And they didn't reschedule it. That's what's telling. They didn't reschedule it, but hopefully we can say that. You said it before. I don't know if you can say it, but I know I've heard you say it in the stream before. But let's finish up.
Try to talk about it because
no, not at all.
Hey, real quick before we continue, Kshama, why don't you follow a brother, bro? Like I've been out like here one of your biggest cheerleaders, and I'm over here thinking like this whole time we follow each other because I never see her tweets until y'all retweeted it, and I'm realizing she don't even follow. That's crazy. I'm a little hurt by that.
She did the same thing. She's just not That's how
I know she don't be up to
she's
like
just
that.
not. She's not into. Yeah, so she'll be responding and not even knowing it. But let's finish up with this last less than a minute right here of the clip, and then we can move on.
And clearly campaign on his working class demands, whether he will run all the way to November 2024 rather than endorse Biden, and whether he will give his campaign a mass grassroots character, including by organizing mass rallies. And I was not entirely happy with Dr. West's response to us on the question of organizing rallies. He first said that they need to quote unquote pace themselves. I think there is an urgency on this question. By this time in the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2015, as I said, more than 100,000 people had attended his mass rallies, and many more had heard about the program of demands Bernie was running on. The clock is ticking here, and we urgently need mass grassroots participation. The best way for us to keep.
So, and I can cut it here because it's just kind of like just giving advice. But I watched the whole video, and we'll cover it in another segment. Nick, maybe Monday we'll cover the actual segment she interviews with Cornel West, and because I have it, I have the, we can do it up to that. She talks about, but let me make this one point. She talks about because she asked him a question, and this is a critique, like Cornel West needs to be able to cultivate the ability of answering questions more directly and understanding it's not the same sort of speaking style. You're lecturing. You're not lecturing in an interview. So in the interview, for example, what she was referring to as his answer behind organizing, like it was a roundabout, and then he came back to the answer, and he kind of answered. It was like, because because Kshama's about, what are we doing? Like, show me, let's plan. What is the organization? What date is the shit happening? Give me the date. What's the time? Like, that's what she's about, and that's just not his response. So the response was a little like, because he made it seem like, oh, we ain't gonna be really doing these big old rallies till it's real close to the election. She was like, what?
Can't do that.
She didn't say that. She didn't say that, but I know
you could tell.
You can tell, like, it was like a what are you talking about when it's closer to the election? Like, we need to do this. We need to do this now. So it feels like to me,
that should have started last.
It feels like to me, Kshama. It feels like Kshama's gonna be doing that critique sort of level that I do, but she's gonna be inside the campaign. Like, no, what are you doing? Like, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, she's gonna be asking those questions. So I'm so happy she's there. Go ahead, Niko or Nick, whoever wanted to chime in.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, so that should have started probably 2 months ago, like the rallies. He's been doing this podcasting, and that's good. You should be doing that type of stuff. You should be doing those interviews. You should be going on mainstream media and trying to make your case, or better yet, showing that you can defend your case, right? Making your case is one thing, but you also need to be able to show that you can take the sticks and stones that they're going to throw at you because you're a Green Party candidate. But those rallies should have started 2-3 months ago, at least planning. But at this point, so like she said in 2015, so whenever the Bernie campaign recruited me, and it was through a student who had just graduated. So they had recruited a student who had literally just graduated from college and was like, yo, come up, find the best, 7-8 students in the country that you believe could help organize a student movement. And this was during the summertime, bro. This was months ago. So he had already, that student movement didn't get rolling on accident. By the time we were in class, we hadn't even started class yet. I had 300 people signed up for the Bernie organization at University of North Carolina before we ever stepped foot in class. Yeah. In less than 3 weeks of that, I was organizing the event that he threw in Greensboro, where he had already began to fill up auditoriums and gymnasiums and stadiums and all that stuff. So, and that was, nobody knew who Bernie was at this point. Nobody. And Dr. West, although people know who he is, you're a third party candidate. So you have to get on the ball. I'm hoping that hiring a manager, even though it is Peter Daou, I'm hoping that hiring the campaign manager and that's a sign
they need people. So Niko, we three of us know more in the background. They need people. We got sources. They need people, and they don't have people. The problem is, Niko and Nick, they're trying to operate this campaign like a regular campaign and not a movement. And that's where the problem. Kshama is telling you, you need to be on this like a movement. That's how Bernie did his, is like a movement. You're not doing that. What's going on? Oh, we don't have people. That's because you keep trying to get people in. You keep trying to get people already in the stat. We don't need that. We need movement people.
Yeah,
Shama's right here. She's right here. Why don't you get her? You need help. RBN is right here. What is the problem?
Yeah,
you need help. Reach out. Like, this is what I'm saying. We're talking to, because you're skipping over the movement people to trying to find establishment people, the ones with the credentials like a Peter Daou. You don't need that. You need a movement organizer. That's what you need, not this. Go ahead, guys.
I can say this now because like it's already dead and gone. But so do you know the two people that Nina specifically, because she was the president of Bernie's campaign, went after for press secretary in 2020, myself and Bree. Myself and Bree had never been press secretaries before. She had just started she had really just become a journalist and an activist and a podcaster. But she's like, we need movement people and people who are outside of DC, because like people who know what's going on, but and their experiences are valuable, but we don't want someone who's going to come and do the same thing and carry the same mindset as somebody who has been involved in the establishment for their entire career. And look how well Bree did. Look at what she did for that Bernie campaign when she was forced to debate those policies, have those conversations. I could tell you, I mean, to be honest, like if you compare that to Peter in his little tour, it's night and day. So you got to start finding movement organizers. People, I'm not saying just go find some activists who some rah-rah shit and that's it.
Yeah, not like
but
real ones.
There are people out there. And I know that y'all have the connections and the ability to reach out to, maybe it isn't one of us, but you know that we know somebody. You know somebody. So yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating because I do agree with her that it's a unique opportunity, not just because it's Cornell West, but it's because of the time that we're in. People are fed they're fed up. They're done. They're done with the two-party system. They're literally, Democrats are saying, yeah, we might vote for Biden, but we really don't want this. We don't want him to run. Like, that is where we're at right now. They're looking for an alternative, and they also don't want it to be Trump. So be the alternative. They're not just going to walk up and give you money and just show up to vote for you, because they'll rather just stay at home than that. Go give them something to vote for. And I also agree with Kshama Sawant that he does have to remember that he's not lecturing. Like, he sounds like he's having a cold brew with you. And this isn't a bad thing necessarily when you're doing some type of podcast formats, but he sounds like he's chilling at the pub with you and y'all having a cold beer together, and he trying to preach to you the good gospel of socialism and radical change. And that's a great, if he was having a conversation with me and I wasn't convinced, by the time I listened to him, I probably would be convinced at a pub or at a bar drinking some beer, right? But that's not what you're doing. It needs to be succinct. What's his phrase? We knew to fill the burn. We knew the $15 minimum wage. We knew all that stuff about Bernie. Like, it was like clockwork, bro. It was $27. I can't. Whenever I see the number 27, I still think of the Bernie Sanders campaign. Years later, we need that type of marketing and strategy from the West campaign. If you're going to build that movement, and we just haven't seen it yet.
And that's like on Ukraine, like, you know how Bernie has Medicare for all, fight for 15. You got, direct messaging, end student loan debt, cancel medical debt. On Ukraine, Dr. West, we need that message immediately.